Our next guest is Roy Van. Born and raised in Honolulu, Roy graduated from the University of Hawaii at Manoa with a bachelor's degree in architecture. In addition to being a registered architect at Design Partners Incorporated, he is also the senior administrator for KawaiiCon, Hawaii's largest anime convention, and the local coordinator for Comic-Con Honolulu, a comic, sci-fi, fantasy, and pop culture convention. Please welcome Roy Van.
Okay, so what I'm going to be talking about today is a little bit more on the idea of how a lot of conventions and things get started, and exactly like how a lot of us got motivated into what we do, what we're actually doing here. You know, like all of us are very large geeks, and you know, and how we actually got to this stage in life. So as you're looking here, you can see that you know, a lot of this happens. All of us are going to school and everything, and school is basically a downtime for us, for a lot of us. And as soon as that school bell rings, you know, all of us are running home. You know, a lot of us either are going to sporting events, you know, to do sports, or a lot of us have either a part-time job or something, or some of us may have, you know, other chores and things to do. But I think a good deal of a lot of us here talking today wanted to get home so we could watch TV. I think a lot of us, you know, we were the masters of the television set once we got home, pushing mom and dad aside, trying to get our time in to try and watch a lot of this, you know, a lot of our programmings and things. So although a lot of us here, a lot of it have been already mentioned right now. We have the Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball Z, their Pokemon and Digimon, and all these types of anime and things like that have helped us, kind of got us into the gateway of where we are today. When I did this next slide, this is more the influence that I had, which was a lot earlier than that. You can see like you have the Thundercats, you have the Silverhawks, G.I. Joe, Voltron, as well as Robotech in the middle. A lot of us in a little bit older crowd saw you know, these are the things that we rushed home to go and watch because there was something different about many of these shows. The big example that everyone kind of knows or kind of has either good or bad feelings for Robotech, which was based off a Japanese anime that had a lot more depth and storytelling that a lot of American cartoons at the time didn't necessarily have. And I remember when I went home, you know, to watch this show, I realized that there's something different about this. I didn't know at the time that this was Japanese anime. I just knew that it was different. The stories were deeper. The characters were a little more rich in flavor and context. They had characters who actually die in these types of things, and you don't see that a lot in American anime. You know, you have like the whole cartoon violence. You know, people get hit with a giant hammer, and they have a big sound effect and everything, and they come back in the next scene. Where in Robotech, you know, one of the main characters that has pulled at your heartstrings passes away, you know, very early on into the series, you know, and you're just like, what just happened here, you know? Same thing with like all these other series. They dealt with a lot of different aspects of the human condition that a lot of only now you can start seeing with some modern animation that is coming out that is actually being dealt with nowadays. So, but as you are geeking out at home and everything, you know, you want to be able to like share these things with other people, because you want to do like what we're doing here. We're giving a talk. We're talking about our little portion of geekdom and how that has affected our lives. So what you do is, you know, you start going to finding your friends, you know, showing them, it's like, here, watch this anime, you have to come and watch this, or you're talking to, your girlfriend or everything. It's like, hey, I like watching Robotech. Have you watched this yet? Or do you want to watch it with me? Or you expose it to your friends. And the problem is like the part image shows, there was a stigma at the time because it was something different, and because differences tend to be not necessarily looked down upon, but just being different was not necessarily acceptable yet at this time. It was something that you kind of had to find your group of people that you can talk to, and then eventually, if you got lucky, like we did here in Hawaii, you started to get small groups together. You would get anime clubs. Either they started in school, and I don't know if Audra. Yes, I found it. So as I was saying, we started like anime clubs here in Hawaii. Apparently, Audra does recognize her own artwork over here in the Anime Co. That was an anime group that was started. Oh my goodness, I don't remember even when. I think it was like the early '90s at a store called Space Castle at the time. Myself and I think 2 or 3 other people started the club. We basically sat around a regular tube television with a VCR underneath, having either someone who had sent a recorded off-the-air television show in Japan, or if we were lucky, we had an actual version, an actual Japanese video, untranslated, no subtitles, no nothing. We would watch like a few minutes of it. Someone would stop the tape and then go. And someone who either had like some rudimentary understanding of Japanese or took Japanese class, like a high school level of Japanese, would go, okay, this is kind of what they just said here at this point. So at that point in time, you really had to, if you didn't speak Japanese or didn't understand it at all, you really had to be very dedicated to be an anime fan during that time. And those kinds of things branched out as well too. A lot of that time is when, during this early time, a lot of manga started to come out as well too. And because of our love of Japanese anime, and the original manga and things for those would start to come out as well as other things as well too. So this started a big interest in it. So like a lot of groups started. In the lower corner as well too, you see a copy of the Cell that I actually own, and that was another reason how another group that we had formed as well is a cell collecting group. Another dying art form right now. If you don't know, Japanese, all animation up until like the early 2000s or so were done on cells, transparent pieces of plastic, and between 12 and 24 of these images were used every second to produce all the animation that you see, either Western animation and or Japanese animation specifically. So, and after the production of these shows, all these digital or all these remnants, artifacts, basically got thrown out. And there are stories of like little old cleaning ladies going into the trash of these large companies, pulling these things out, standing on a street corner and selling them to fans. So, and that's how like self collecting got started for a lot of us. And at the time, there was a small group of us who had gotten together for our love of Japanese anime cells, and we were talking at the time of I think this was like the very early 2000s about what if we got a whole bunch of people together and we started looking at doing what if we actually did a convention on our own here in Hawaii. And at the time, I kind of just laughed it off, thinking, there's no way we're going to be able to do something like that. We don't have the funding, we don't have the contacts. Unlike the mainland, who have there have been anime conventions on the mainland that have been going for over 20 years now. So at 2000, at the time we're talking about here in the early 2000s, some of them were already 10 years old. They've had anime conventions, for quite a while over there. And Hawaii, you would think that we would have a much more direct connection into this. you think that we would have had one earlier than we actually ever did. There had been smaller ones before as a part of other conventions, but we never really had any. We never had any dedicated anime convention here in Hawaii. The thing, like I said, the only way we had it is through our clubs, either through Japanese clubs, specific collecting clubs, outside anime clubs that were centered around something like a store. That's what we had here, and that's what we did. And if we were lucky, we had the ability to share this type of thing either at school events. There were like small anime clubs and things like that that were out there. They were not very well known about or anything like that until KawaiiCon first got started. That was the first time I had heard about KawaiiCon was very early in 2005, in our first year. This was like about a year after that conversation we had about making our own convention. And the president of that club, I had run into him by accident. And he had come back and told me that, hey, I've met this group of people online, and they were talking about putting together a Japanese animation convention here in Hawaii. It would be a small thing. We would put together just a group of us trying to get do a whole bunch of grassroots efforts trying to get all these things off the ground. And at that time, it was very interesting because it was a lot of dedicated hard work that those people had put into putting this thing out. And I had volunteered my time to help run an event over there, and I have been with KawaiiCon ever since. So initially, as we started out very small. We had local guests. We had video gaming. We have all our dedicated staff and people. And other thing, the ability of putting on KawaiiCon let this genre itself grow greatly. Not only where we could just celebrate our love for anime, but things like we had the ability to also gather a bunch of like-minded geeks together and basically celebrate something that we really enjoy and really love. And from that as well too, we can do a whole bunch of other things as well. Like I said, we had the ability with a larger group of people to invite anime or artist guests like Stan Sakai in the corner. We have a huge video gaming department that has grown greatly over the years right now. We have a very large tabletop gaming as well organized around there. We have the ability to invite Japanese guests and artists to come down, get autographs, and have talks and things in our discussion panels. We have our huge artist alley that has been very, very well attended by all of our people. I think we have like 200 plus tables just dedicated to so-called amateur artists that come down to participate at KawaiiCon. We have a dedicated room specifically only for manga. We have a very large manga library that has been gathered through donations and things from the community of people, wanting to help us build this. And with in the center there, you see a group of us being the volunteers that help put on these shows. And I think it's through the efforts of volunteers like them, volunteers like us, as well as through the passion and dedication of all our fans, that KawaiiCon has gotten to be as large as it has right now. So as you can see right now, as it was mentioned earlier, KawaiiCon has grown to be about I think the last numbers were over 11,000 people at over a 3-day convention at the convention center. Have these huge, what you can see on the lower left-hand side of the screen, on the lower left-hand, that's our artist alley right now. It takes up about half of one of the exhibition halls downstairs. The other half is actually taken over by our dealer's room. We have these huge costume contests right now as well too, and it all comes down to our people like these our other speakers here as well too, their passions and their abilities and their strive as well too to be the best that they are helps us also to become better and better every year, so that we can basically match their efforts and drives, so that the KawaiCon and other KawaiCon can become the show that to help them as well too to be better at what they do as well too. So KawaiCon has given me the opportunity to meet all these people that we're talking to today, and I'm very thankful for what it has done and what we hope to give back to the community as well too. Thank you.